Is HBS on your list? Hear from this HBS student about her experience so far at Harvard Business School, shut down and all about the Harbus Essay Guide and how it can help you get into Harvard Business School.
Welcome to Admission Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" Confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 375th episode of Admission Straight Talk. Thanks for joining me. Are you ready to apply to your dream MBA program? Are you competitive at your target schools? Accepted's MBA admissions calculator can give you a quick reality check. Just go to accepted.com/375quiz, complete the quiz, and you'll not only get an assessment, but tips on how to improve your qualifications. Plus, it's all free. Again, use the calculator at accepted.com/375quiz to obtain your complimentary assessment. Our guest today, Harsha Mulchandani, lived most of her life in India. She earned an integrated MS in mathematics and computer science in 2015 from IIT Kanpur. She then launched a professional career at Boston Consulting Group and left BCG to become an investment analyst in 2017. She moved to Boston and Harvard Business School last summer to join the class of 2021. For her summer internship, she is an M&A and operations associate while also serving separately as the product manager for Harbus, HBS's student newspaper. For Harbus, she works primarily on the HBS Essay Guide, which just came out, and its interview guide, which will come out shortly. We're going to learn about both of them a little later with a special focus on the Essay Guide. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what you like to do for fun, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in India for the largest part of my life. I was in a town in the northern part of India called Jaipur. You may have heard of it as the Pink City, or a city famous for forts and palaces.
I have heard of it.
More recently for weddings. So yeah, it's getting popular. I spent a large part of my time till I was 18 there, and then I shifted to Kanpur to do my integrated master's in mathematics and scientific computing. I spent about 5 years there, and after that, as you mentioned, I launched into management consulting with the Boston Consulting Group. A large part of my 2.5 years there was focused on consumer goods, and I did a project with the government of Rajasthan, which is my home state as well. And then from there, I went on to a private equity fund called Westbridge Capital. I spent about 1.5 years there, and I'm here now. That's what I did before joining HBS, other than, of course, getting married. And
congratulations.
And for fun, so I've been into dance all my life. So I used to do a lot of dance growing up in college, and same in HBS. And I like to go for short runs. I listen to some of my favorite podcasts. And yeah, for fun, I just do these two things.
Sounds good. All right. Now, I got a question for you. Your undergraduate degree is in mathematics and computer science. You worked at Boston Consulting Group, one of the most prestigious consulting companies in the world, strategy consulting companies. You then were working in private equity as an investment analyst. Why did you think you needed an MBA? Why did you decide to get the MBA?
Yeah, so I guess this is the question that people ask any MBA graduate often, or at least someone who is deciding to go into an MBA. I guess the most important question to answer is why MBA? And I guess for me, the answer was never just about only the hard skills or only the more tangible skills. It was a mix of hard skills agenda and a more personal development agenda. And the answer for me somehow has always been a cross cut of those two. So my exposure to all working styles before with clients or colleagues had only been focused on my own geography, which is India. So being able to develop a more global working style, interacting with some of my colleagues who have had had experience working here or have grown up here, that was one of the things on my list. I want to interact with people and figure out what it is out there that I don't really know of. And I guess a lot of people do return on investment calculations and take the salary of their next jobs and say, okay, in how many years can I make up for the salary? But I guess for me, it was always about, you have to add that personal development equation into that. And you have to say it's a melting pot of so many different cultures, being able to listen to speakers from Brian Stevenson to Alan Horn. And also personally for me as an entrepreneur, I guess America is a much deeper market capital wise. So just to be exposed to the venture capital, private equity community here, I guess if I put all of that into the equation, it did seem favorable for me to come here and do an MBA.
Okay. So you see yourself as an entrepreneur going forward?
I do.
Okay. All right. I guess so the Harbus experiences we're going to get to in a minute is really what, kind of more related to that, right? Now, do you remember anything particularly challenging about your MBA application process when you were applying, or was it pretty much smooth sailing?
No, it was definitely one of the toughest things I've done in my life.
Really?
Yeah, and I say that because I guess the process just needs a lot of patience and perseverance to go through the same essay, same story again and again, and just having the conviction to be able to refine it every time and having those meaningful conversations and figuring out what matters to you the most. So I guess developing a coherent story and saying, okay, this covers the entirety of my life. These are the events which are the most important to me, but does it also speak truly of who I am? It speaks to my achievements, it speaks to my strength, but it's also uniquely my voice. I guess just getting all of that together and figuring out the right set of people and mentors who were really important to me to guide me through the journey. I guess that was the most important, crucial, critical part of the process for me.
That also comes through, by the way, very clearly in the essay guide.
Exactly.
We'll get back to that. We're going to circle back to that, but I did want to make that point now.
Yes.
Now, you had pretty high expectations of Harvard when you decided to attend in terms of the mix of people you were going to be with, the caliber of the people, the diversity of the people, and the leadership elements, the leadership development elements of the program, as well as the entrepreneurial elements of the program.
Right.
Is it meeting your expectations?
Well, it's
or should I say, where is it meeting them and where is it falling short?
Well, I guess it's definitely meeting my expectations, and I say that not just because I studied in this school and I did make that choice, but I think in terms of giving me the kind of access, and not just me, of course, all the students, the kind of access that I guess can be really crucial and pivotal at this moment in our lives, be it through speakers in a startup boot camp, or be it through a speaker who's coming as a part of your course and speaking in the auditorium. I guess just some of those connections, and then bringing some of those speakers within the class and have them discuss their stories with you through the case that you just read of and discussed extensively with your classmates. I guess all of that, it's difficult to concisely put it, but I guess in those bits and pieces is where the actual change is happening. And when we are in the process, it's tough to say, this is tangibly how I'm changing every day. But when you're outside of those 2 years, that's when you realize, okay, yes, wow, this is what I took back from the experience. So I guess I'm just going to go through the process, focus on the stuff that I like, and be sure to expose myself to everything that I came for, and take a call at the end of 2 years how it went. But as of now, I think I got all that I could by being in all the right places and by speaking to a great set of people. And I have developed a community of mentors, of professors, of and my colleagues here who come from a varied breadth of experiences. And I love that.
That's great. Okay, sounds good. Not talking about the shutdown for the moment, is there anything that you would have liked to have improved or that could be improved?
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, and I think in terms of what could be improved, I'd say the flexibility of the academic curriculum. I think HBS has specifically designed the first year in a way so that it's mandatory a certain set of courses for everyone to take. But I guess for people coming from varied experiences, like for me, I had a little bit more experience in finance than maybe some of my other classmates. Some others may have a little bit more experience in operations. So I guess for everyone to be able to curate their own experience academically for the first year, I felt was important. I wouldn't say that I didn't learn from the courses, but maybe I could have learned more if I had the opportunity to curate them myself.
Okay, fair enough. Now, COVID hit, there was a shutdown. The case method had to be adapted to distance learning. How do you think, how was your adjustment to online learning, social distancing, and sheltering in place, in terms of not just the social ones? We were chatting about that a little bit, before we started recording, but in terms of your experience as a Harvard Business School student.
Well, I guess, I'll paint you this picture. So immediately, like when this thing broke out, somewhere in the beginning of March, we were told that our spring break travel is going to be canceled. And that was just one in a large line of dominoes that were going to be kicked down. And then immediately we were told that through the spring break, HBS is going to work to pivot all the classes to a Zoom model, and how to see how the case method could be adopted online. And then when we open up, I guess all we see is our classmates replaced with these 49 boards that we could see on the Zoom screen. Our actual hand being replaced with this Zoom hand that we could raise in order to be able to speak in class. So it's been an interesting learning experience, because I'd say that I think some of what we lost was those 20-minute conversations in between the classes, reading from the body language of some of my classmates, going back and following up on some of the comments, asking, you said this, but did you really mean this? I guess some of those conversations have been cut short much before we expected. But to put this in light of whatever else is happening in the world right now, I still feel we are in a much better place. I think we are in an age, in an era where technology can sort of take care of a lot of this. I don't know if this would have happened 10 years back, how any of the MBA courses could have been adapted to it, but now with such tools around, I guess it's still an experiment. It's, I guess HBS sent out an email saying it was the first time since World War II that that in-person physical classes were being suspended, and an online model was taking over. So yeah, it's been interesting. I guess the challenge was also on the other side for some of the professors who were so used to an in-class teaching to be able to adapt their teaching to online. How do you call everyone in the class from a calling pattern basis fairly? How do you make people feel they are heard? How do you make an appreciation still felt for everyone's views? So I guess those were some of the changes. And I guess on a more personal side of it, my husband and I immediately shifted to like deciding who's going to take the calls from the room, who's going to sit in the living area, who's going to make breakfast, who's going to make lunch. So those are some of the changes that we went through.
Right. Were there any silver linings to the remote learning?
Yeah, I guess this is a question that I've thought about a lot, and not just for the podcast, but also in general. And I guess one thing that resonates with me a lot is what online has done is it's made everyone equidistant. No one is far, no one is near. And to that end, I think the access which we felt was high in the sense of being able to get great speakers in school. For example, you'd see that sometime a speaker couldn't fly in because snowed in or some other reasons. But now, given everyone is so used to this way of thinking, so used to Zoom, I guess access to anyone and everyone is possible. So I guess bringing all those people in, being able to listen to many more people than we could have thought we would, I guess that is something which to me is an interesting experiment. And I'd see, and if things remain online next year or even move to a hybrid model, that is something that I'd expect a lot more on. That's first. And I think the second bit is that people generally started becoming a lot more sympathetic towards either the class of 2020 or those who were in their MBA process in 2020. People just generally were more receptive to us reaching out, more helpful as mentors. And I guess a lot more internships opened up towards the rare end because so many internships got canceled in the process too, that a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't think of internships just came out. Even the HBS alumni group came out and said, okay, we are going to create these internships for you and why don't you come and work for us? So I guess there are definitely some silver linings, although a large part of it is, I would say, disappointing compared to where we could have actually been.
Right. Now, if you had known, let's say in 2019, what was going to happen and that part of your education was going to be entirely online and you're going to have the probably blended or some social distancing in the next class, would you still have wanted to come?
It's a difficult question to answer, Linda.
Sure. It's hard to imagine it, really.
It's hard to imagine because we've lived through it, and honestly, it doesn't seem like things are too bad because we just find ways to connect somehow. I guess it's just human to find ways to stay in touch, to find ways to be in touch with people who you spent the last 1 year with. So I don't think I would have canceled, knowing what I know now, I would still not have possibly canceled my MBA because I think some of the unique connections that I've formed, it's just impossible to think that I could have replicated them with anything else. So.
Okay, great. I think it's an important question to think about, because there are a lot of people thinking whether they should apply or shouldn't apply.
Right.
And they may not be they may not have the same experience they would have had without COVID, but they could still have a great experience.
Exactly. And to be honest, like a lot of people have reached out to me, and what I suggested to them was, because HBS classes are open for anyone to attend, I suggested a lot of them to come and attend classes, see for themselves how the Zoom experience works out. There will be technical glitches very often. You will have your hand raised and you still won't be called a lot of the time. But I guess that's the new reality we live in, and we make the best of it.
Right. In more ways than one, in many different ways. All right. One last question before we get to the Harbus Essay Guide and Harbus in general. And that is, your internship, was it canceled or did you get it and it went smoothly and all that?
When I came in, I wanted to work in a startup to see if that entrepreneurial bug that I have is actually worth exploring, and to be able to see if that hustle is really for me. So I guess for me, it went fairly smoothly. It continued the way I had planned it to be, but I guess for some of my colleagues, I did see internship offers being rescinded in like some of the later days as companies realized that they didn't have enough resources to direct towards the internship program. A lot of programs were shortened. Even some of the larger firm names that we hear of, they ended up making their programs to a six-week program from what was originally a 10-12-week program. So yeah, there definitely were changes.
Okay. All right, great. Now let's get to Harbus. How did you get involved with Harbus and the Harbus Essay Guide?
So I think writing has always been a thing for me. I tried to write a personal blog. In my undergrad days, I was the newsletter editor for the entrepreneurship newsletter. So I guess the writing bug was there somewhere. And when I saw the opportunity to combine the idea of having a newspaper and then having alongside some products that I could product manage and eventually be independently handling, I guess that idea was really exciting to see how we could modernize the concept of a newspaper and bring more products which are digitally available, which make the process and the whole concept of HBS more accessible to applicants. I guess it was just exciting for me. And I remember writing down, when I was researching clubs before coming to HBS, I remember writing down Harbus as one of the top 3 clubs that I wanted to join.
Okay, great. And you talked about developing new products for Harbus the newspaper, and also you've come up with a new Harbus Essay Guide. So I have a question specific to the Essay Guide, but what's new in the what new products have you come up with for Harbus?
Yeah, so I guess some of the products that we used to have are going to be presented with fresher content again this year. So we have an essay guide, which we will be talking about, and then there is an interview guide, which we are working to make a new version for and have it out in time so that people can refer to it as they prepare for their interviews this year or for the next year. And that is another product that we are thinking to have. And alongside, we are thinking of, we've recently revamped our website, and alongside we are thinking to make some of the older newspaper archives available via the website for people who, for alumni or for people who wanted to know what's generally going on in the campus but cannot be in it. Other than, of course, the digital version, which is already available on the website, some of the archives as well. So yeah, those are some of the plans that we have for this year, and we continuously innovate. So we may have something totally new at the end of this year.
All right, so now let's focus on the guide. What's new in the guide since Harvard's essay question hasn't changed, right?
That's a good question, Linda. And I thought about this myself. I guess the answer is the format of the guide remains exactly the same. It has 22 essays this time. We tend to keep it to that number. It starts with a brief analysis by one of the Harbus editors. We have the essay, and then we have some commentary from the person whose essay it is. And I guess we've kept the format the same. I guess what's different and what continuously changes is that we try to bring a set of fresher voices because as career paths change, as the admissions committee looks at careers in a different way. For example, 3 years back, HBS did not look at startups in India the same way as it does now. The recruiting from India was a lot more focused on maybe private equity, maybe some of the more standard career paths. But now we have some of the more unconventional career paths being taken seriously too. And I guess this is true for a lot of geographies. I just gave an example that I'm aware of. So I think just to keep bringing those fresh voices to the fore and keep expanding the bouquet of possibilities to say, well, this is acceptable too, and this is acceptable too. So I guess the two guides, if you see, they will read very differently just in terms of the kind of choices people talk about, the kind of risks people take. I guess, and for us, we always try to expand these choices, because personally for me, when I read the guide that was available during our time, I kept thinking, oh, okay, so this can also be done. This essay might not work for me. This story is not mine, but I know this is possible too, and this is possible too. So I guess it's just to keep expanding those boundaries.
Do you think there's any difference in like the nature of the essays in this essay guide? I mean, there was a change in the director in the admissions office, I think, between the previous essay guide, and I think Chad Losey was appointed
Yes.
right around 3-4 years ago. So there was a change there.
No,
obviously
so
the world has changed.
Yeah. No, definitely. Though I think the last guide was in and around the time when Chad Losey came.
Right, it was right around.
It was right around that time. So I guess other than what I spoke about in terms of how people have voiced some of their stories, I don't think there is a large change. I guess what we are trying to say is some of the things that held true still hold true, and a lot of it is continuously changing. So the point is not to work in a given set of industries, but to be articulate about what you can take from it and keep moving forward.
Is that the primary benefit of the guide to you, in your mind?
Yeah, exactly. I would say that just like I said, the primary benefit of the guide is to be able to give you what all possibilities are around there, and there is no perfect essay that will exactly work for you. But if any of this makes sense to you, then do think about applying.
I think I've been going through it, and it seemed to me like I would obviously read the introduction, the essays, and then the comments by the essay author. Almost everyone took tremendous pride and clearly took very seriously maintaining their own voice and wanting the essay to be an authentic reflection of them.
Yeah. And I guess that's the theme that runs through, because when we say,
yes,
that no essay is perfect, it means that this voice might not be yours, but you have a voice, and it is important for that to be heard too. And I guess you articulated it really well. People want it to be an authentic reflection of themselves, and that's why it's important for us to keep putting these out to tell people what's really out there, and that your story matters too.
I think it's also important that for the purchaser of the guide or any applicant to realize that if you're just going to write what you think Harvard Business School wants to read, you're probably not going to get into Harvard, and you're certainly not going to get into that essay guide. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one or two of the essays which when I read them, I was like, oh, this person took a really big risk. For example, I think one of the essays is where a person talks about their failures, their mistakes, and their weaknesses. And I was like, would you want to expose all of that to the admissions committee? But I guess that's the voice. If you have the confidence to speak out about it, and that's what you took from that experience, it's a powerful experience, and it's a story, it's a narration that deserves to be told. Similarly, I remember there's another essay which talks about a person who's worked in banking and private equity, a very common career path, yet the entire essay almost focuses on beauty and how they sell beauty in some of the in working in a wedding dresses business, or in yoga, in practicing that form of exercise. So I guess it's just about how you bring your experiences together in a coherent format and stick true to what you think your personality really is. Because I think this part of the story, and I've said this before, this is the only part of your application which is effectively a story. Everything else is where you're putting facts. Your GMAT score is a fact. Your resume is a collection of facts. This is authentically your story. And as humans, stories for us have been the most effective form of communication. So put all your heart and soul into it.
That's right. That's right. Going back to the caveman stories, it's all about stories. And this is the Harvard, unlike really any other business school, lets the applicant tell whatever they want to talk about.
Exactly.
What do you want Harvard Business School to know, given what they already know in the rest of the application?
Yeah, it's
paraphrasing, but that's pretty much it. So it really is the applicant's opportunity to tell their story as they want to relate it.
Definitely.
Right. What are your plans for the future after the MBA?
Oh, well, that's, I guess, the $1 million question. I don't know. With all that's going on with the world right now, and the uncertainties with the visa situation, I guess a lot of this is also changing the way we thought of our careers in a more global way. It's tough to say which geography I might end up in. Will it be in the US for a few more years or back to India immediately? But I guess my aim is always and has always been to be an entrepreneur. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I guess it's the thing to do. It's a really abused term, but I guess it's something that creating products has something that has always excited me. My family has a confectionery business, and I guess took my love for consumer products from there. And even though some of the industries that I want to be in are not necessarily foods, but I think the concept of the rapidly evolving industries of skincare or apparel or fashion tech are superbly exciting to me. And I guess I see myself landing somewhere in that zone in the future.
Okay. Is your husband also an MBA student?
No, he is not. He works for McKinsey.
So you can get around.
Yeah, he's been contemplating getting it for some time now, but I guess this may have been the year he applied, but who knows now with all that's changing. So.
Right. What would you have liked me to ask you?
Well, it's not something that I would have liked to ask you maybe, but just generally, if whenever someone asks me about my advice as they're researching or thinking about an MBA, I generally tell them to not singularly focus on that one dimension of career, or how will this advance my career? How will this help me make a career switch? I guess that's a really important question to ask because it's a monetary investment. But I guess through my time, through 1 year at HBS, I've realized that it's such a multidimensional, your own personality, such a multidimensional thing that also like speak to as many people, speak to as many seniors as you want from the school or who have had the experience of applying, just to understand what else it added to their personality, not just career. Like what else did it help them? Did it help them meet new people, or did it help them attend classes across the river, or in another schools, because Boston is a wonderful town. It has MIT, it has all the other Harvard schools. What did it help you do other than be in the classroom and have the career that you wanted? I guess if you look at that question from a more multidimensional perspective, it makes a lot more sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Harsha, you've been really generous with your time and with your insight and thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your MBA experience, as well as the Harbus Essay Guide story with my listeners and with me. So where can listeners learn more about the Harbus Essay Guide?
Yeah, so you just have to go and type Harbus on Google, and our website is harbus.org. And if you there is a link on the website which links to the essay book. So if you want the direct link, it would be harbus.org/the essay book. And you'll get the guide there, available in 3 formats. We are presenting the latest version, which is the 22 essays, and we are also presenting combos, combining essays from some of the previous years, some of the previous guides. So pick what works the best for you. I personally had a combo guide which worked the best for me because it told me how things had evolved through the years, what kind of stories were much more acceptable now. And yeah, it was a super helpful resource for me. So personally, big recommendation, go ahead and buy it.
Nice. Okay, great. And if that URL was a little bit hard, you can just go to accepted.com/375. We'll be linking to the guide from our show notes, and we'll take you right there. Okay.
Awesome.
And I do want to add to what Harsha was saying, that I think it is a valuable resource, because you see that you don't have to fit into a prescribed box when you're applying to Harvard Business School in terms of your essay. You really do have to do some serious self-reflection, I think, to determine what you want to tell Harvard and then how to articulate it well. But I also recommend the guide. Listeners, thank you too for joining me for this episode of Mission Straight Talk. If you would like more information about the Harvard Essay Guide, as I just said, we'll include a link in the show notes at accepted.com/375 to it, as well as to a sample essay from this guide, which we have permission to post. Quick reminder, don't miss the MBA Admissions Guide and MBA Admissions Quiz. Are you ready to apply? Competitive? Found out at accepted.com/375quiz, which is a free resource that we offer applicants. Thanks again for coming. This is the Mission Straight Talk produced by Accepted, and I am your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.